5 years. 1,826 days. That's how long 7-year-old Amy Cooper had been missing. 5 years of searching, 5 years of hoping, 5 years of a mother who set the dinner table for a ghost, and a father who couldn't walk past his daughter's bedroom without breaking down. The case had gone cold, the leads had dried up, the world had moved on. But Sarah and David Cooper never did. And then, on a Tuesday night in October, at exactly 9:43 p.m., someone knocked on their door. Sarah Cooper opened it to find a 12-year-old girl standing on the doorstep. Taller now, older, but unmistakably her daughter. Amy had no memory of where she'd been, no memory of who took her, no memory of the 5 years that had been stolen from her childhood. The sound was so ordinary, Sarah almost didn't hear it over the television. 3 knocks, firm, deliberate. David looked up from his laptop, his brow furrowed. They weren't expecting anyone. They never expected anyone anymore. Not since the 7th anniversary vigil 3 months ago, when the reporters finally stopped calling, when the neighbors finally stopped dropping off casseroles with those pitying looks, when the world finally accepted what Sarah and David refused to believe, that Amy was gone, that she was never coming back. Sarah walked to the door, her slippers shuffling against the hardwood floor. Through the peephole she saw a figure, small, a child, probably a kid selling candy bars for school or collecting for some charity. She opened the door, already reaching for her purse. And then the world stopped. The girl standing on her doorstep had long brown hair, tangled and unwashed. She wore jeans that were too short for her growing frame and a faded pink hoodie Sarah had never seen before. But it was her eyes, those eyes, green with flecks of gold. Amy's eyes. "Mom?" the girl whispered, her voice hoarse as if she hadn't spoken in days. The word hit Sarah like a physical blow. Her hand flew to her mouth. Behind her, she heard David's laptop clatter to the floor. "Amy?" Sarah's voice cracked. "Amy, is that you?" The girl nodded slowly, and Sarah saw it then, the way she tilted her head slightly to the left when she was uncertain, the small scar above her right eyebrow from when she'd fallen off her bike at age 5. It was her. It was really her. Sarah pulled her daughter into her arms, sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. David was there too, wrapping them both in his embrace, his whole body shaking. "Where have you been?" Sarah gasped between sobs. "Baby, where have you been?" Amy looked up at her mother, confusion clouding those familiar eyes. "I don't know. I don't remember." Officer Ben Matthews arrived within minutes of David's frantic 911 call. He'd been a rookie when Amy first disappeared, one of the officers who'd searched the carnival grounds until his feet bled. Now a detective, he stood in the Cooper living room, staring at the girl he'd spent 5 years searching for. Amy sat on the couch, wrapped in her mother's arms. Sarah hadn't let go of her since she'd walked through the door. She kept touching Amy's face, her hair, as if to confirm she was real. "Amy," Detective Matthews said gently, kneeling in front of her, "can you tell me what you remember?" Amy's eyes were distant, unfocused. "I remember the carnival," she said slowly. "The lights, the music. There was a man. He was giving out balloons." Sarah tensed. This was more than they'd gotten from her in the first hour. "What did the man look like?" Matthews asked, keeping his voice calm. Amy's brow furrowed. I can't see his face. It's blurry." "That's okay. What else do you remember?" "He asked me if I wanted a balloon. I said yes, and then—" Amy's voice trailed off. Her breathing quickened. "It's okay, sweetheart," whispered Sarah, stroking her daughter's hair. "You're safe now." But Amy was shaking her head, her hands gripping her mother's arm. "I can't remember," she said, her voice rising with panic. "I can't remember anything after that. It's just blank." Matthews exchanged a glance with David. 5 years. 5 entire years. Just gone. "We're gonna need to take her to the hospital. Run some tests. Make sure she's okay," Matthews said quietly. But she didn't loosen her grip on Amy, not for a second. At Cedar Valley Medical Center, Dr. Rachel Kim examined Amy with gentle, practiced hands. Sarah and David watched through the observation window, their faces pressed against the glass. "Physically, she appears healthy," Dr. Kim told them an hour later in her office. "No signs of malnutrition, no evidence of recent physical abuse. She's been well cared for, which is what?" David asked, his voice tight. Dr. Kim chose her words carefully. "It's unusual. In most abduction cases, especially ones lasting this long, we see signs of neglect, dental decay, vitamin deficiencies. But Amy's blood work is normal. Her teeth have been brushed. Someone has been taking care of her." The words hung in the air like a threat. Someone had been taking care of her for 5 years. Someone had fed her, clothed her, kept her healthy, and then just let her go. "What about her memory?" Sarah asked. Dr. Kim sighed. "I've called in Dr. Amanda Jacobs, a specialist in childhood trauma and memory suppression. She'll be here tomorrow morning. But Sarah, David," she paused, "you need to prepare yourselves. Traumatic amnesia of this magnitude, especially spanning 5 years, suggests that whatever Amy experienced was severe enough that her mind has locked it away to protect her." "Will she ever remember?" David asked. "I don't know," Dr. Kim admitted. "Sometimes memories resurface gradually, sometimes they come back all at once, and sometimes they stay buried forever." That night, Amy slept in her old bedroom. Sarah had kept it exactly as it was the day she disappeared. The pink walls, the stuffed animals lined up on the shelf, the solar system mobile hanging above the bed. But Amy wasn't 7 anymore. She was 12, and as she lay in a bed that was too small for her, surrounded by toys she'd outgrown, Sarah watched from the doorway and felt grief mix with gratitude. Her daughter was home, but the little girl who'd left was gone forever. Around midnight, Sarah heard a sound from Amy's room. She rushed in to find her daughter sitting up in bed, her eyes wide and unseeing. "Amy?" "The drawings. I need to draw." "What?" "I can't remember with words," Amy said, her voice strange and distant. "But I can see it when I close my eyes. I need to draw it." Sarah quickly found paper and crayons, the same box Amy had used 5 years ago. She watched as her daughter's hand moved across the page, fast and urgent. When Amy finally stopped, Sarah looked at the drawing. It was a room, 4 walls, no windows, a single door with multiple locks. And in the center of the room, drawn in careful detail, was a small bed. Amy looked up at her mother, tears streaming down her face. "This is where I was," she whispered. Detective Maria Torres hadn't slept in 36 hours. She stood in the Cooper living room, the same living room where she delivered devastating news 5 years ago when the search had turned up nothing, where she'd watched Sarah Cooper's hope die a little more with each passing week. Torres had worked hundreds of cases in her 22 years on the force, but Amy Cooper's disappearance had haunted her. The case file sat on her desk, always open, always waiting, and now the girl was back. "Show me the drawings," Torres said to Sarah. Sarah spread them across the dining room table. Amy had drawn 7 pictures in the 3 days since she'd returned. Each one was disturbing in its clarity. The first drawing showed the windowless room, the locked door, the small bed. The second showed a tray of food being slid under the door, sandwiches, apple slices, a juice box. The third showed books, stacks and stacks of books. She drew these without stopping, like she was in a trance. Torres studied each drawing carefully.
Whoever had taken Amy had kept her in isolation, but had fed her, given her reading material. It matched Dr. Kim's assessment. This was something calculated. "Where's Amy now?" Torres asked. "Upstairs with David. She barely leaves our sight. She's terrified we're going to disappear." Torres nodded. Separation anxiety was common in recovered children, but 5 years of captivity followed by sudden release, that would create attachment issues that might never fully heal. The fourth drawing made Torres stop. It showed a hand, an adult hand, reaching through a slot in the door. In the palm was a small pill. "Dr. Kim thinks she was being sedated," Sarah whispered. "That's why her memories are so fragmented." Sedation would explain the amnesia, the blank spaces in Amy's memory. Someone had been drugging her to keep her compliant, to keep her from remembering. The fifth drawing showed a window, but not in the room. This was a memory from before or after. Through the window, Amy had drawn a tree, a very specific tree with a distinctive curved trunk. "Do you recognize this tree?" Torres asked. Sarah shook her head. "I've never seen it before." Torres photographed the drawing. This could be their first real lead. If they could identify the tree, they could identify the location. The sixth drawing was simpler, a calendar on a wall. But the dates were wrong. They didn't match the 5 years Amy had been missing. "What does this mean?" Sarah asked. Torres studied it carefully. He was lying to her about time, maybe telling her days were weeks or weeks were months, distorting her perception of how long she'd been there. It was a psychological manipulation technique. Keep the victim disoriented, make them lose track of time, of reality itself. The seventh drawing showed a door opening, and through that door, a figure. Amy had drawn it carefully, but the face was scribbled out, scratched over so violently the paper had torn. But she'd drawn something else, something specific. On the figure's left hand, she'd drawn a ring, a distinctive ring with a square stone. "We need to talk to Amy," Torres said.
In the living room, Amy sat between her parents on the couch. She looked smaller than 12, her knees pulled up to her chest, her eyes wary. Detective Torres sat across from her voice gentle but firm. "Amy, these drawings are very helpful. They're going to help us find the person who took you." Amy nodded but didn't speak. "The last drawing, the one with the person at the door, can you tell me anything about them?" Amy's hands tightened around her knees. "I can't see the face," she whispered. "Every time I try to remember the face, it goes dark." "That's okay," Torres said. "What about the voice? Was it a man or a woman?" Amy closed her eyes. "A man, I think, but the voice was soft, almost like he was trying to sound nice." A soft voice, someone trying to sound kind while holding a child captive for 5 years. "The ring you drew, did you see it often?" Amy nodded. "When he brought the food, when he gave me the pills, I always saw the ring." "Good. That's very good, Amy. Is there anything else you remember? Any sounds? Smells?" Amy's face scrunched up in concentration. "Music," she said suddenly. "There was always music playing. Old music, like from a long time ago." "What kind of music?" "Jazz," Amy said. "My art teacher, Mr. Price, used to play it during class. It sounded like that." Torres wrote it down. Jazz music, a distinctive ring, a curved tree. They were puzzle pieces, scattered and incomplete, but they were something. Officer Ben Matthews knocked on the door, his face grim. "We've got a problem," he said to Torres. "Jake Morrison is back in town." Jake Morrison, the carnival worker who'd been their prime suspect 5 years ago. He'd been the one handing out balloons that night. He'd been the last person seen talking to Amy before she disappeared. But they hadn't had enough evidence to arrest him. He'd passed a polygraph, His alibi had checked out, and without a body, without proof, they'd had to let him go. Morrison had left Cedar Valley immediately after, claiming the suspicion had destroyed his life. And now he was back, the same week Amy returned. "Bring him in," Torres said. The interrogation room at Cedar Valley Police Department was deliberately uncomfortable. Harsh fluorescent lights, a metal table bolted to the floor, no windows. Jake Morrison sat across from Detective Torres, his leg bouncing nervously. He'd aged in 5 years. His hair was grayer, deep lines creased his forehead. "I heard she came back," Morrison said before Torres could speak. "Amy Cooper. I heard she just showed up." "How did you hear that?" Torres asked. "Small town. Word travels." Morrison leaned forward. "I came back because I knew you'd want to talk to me. I've got nothing to hide." "You left town pretty quickly 5 years ago." "Because everyone thought I was a child kidnapper." Morrison's voice rose. "I lost my job, my friends, my reputation. I had to leave." "Where were you last Tuesday night, between 8 and 10 p.m.? Morrison pulled out his phone, scrolling through it. "Working. I'm a night manager at a warehouse in Brookfield now. I can show you the time cards." Torres studied him. Morrison looked tired, beaten down, but that didn't mean he was innocent. "Amy drew pictures," Torres said, watching his reaction carefully. "Pictures of where she was kept. A room with no windows, a door with multiple locks. Does that sound familiar?" Morrison's face went pale. "No, God no! I never hurt that little girl. I handed her a balloon. That's it. That's all I did." "Then why did you come back to Cedar Valley?" Morrison met her eyes. "Because 5 years ago, everyone looked at me like I was a monster, and I couldn't prove I wasn't. Now Amy's back. Now she can tell you it wasn't me." "She can't remember who took her." The words hit Morrison like a slap. "She can't remember?" 5 years of her life are just gone, erased. Morrison slumped in his chair. "Then I'm never going to clear my name, am I?" Torres stood up. "Don't leave town, Mr. Morrison." As she left the interrogation room, Matthews was waiting in the hallway. "His alibi checks out for Tuesday night. He was at work, 20 witnesses." Torres nodded. She'd expected as much, because whoever had Amy for 5 years had planned this carefully, and releasing her the same week Morrison returned to town felt like misdirection. Someone was playing games with them. Back at the Cooper house, Sarah found Amy in her bedroom, drawing again. But this wasn't like the other pictures. This one showed people, a crowd, faces in the background, blurred and indistinct, except for one face, one that Amy had drawn with careful, precise detail. A woman with short blonde hair and glasses, smiling at the camera. "Amy," Sarah said carefully, "who is this?" Amy looked at the drawing, her expression blank. "I don't know, but I've seen her before, lots of times." "Where? Where did you see her?" Amy's eyes met her mother's, confused and frightened. "I don't know. I can't remember, but she was always there, watching."
Dr. Amanda Jacobs arrived at the Cooper residence early Friday morning, carrying a worn leather briefcase and an expression of deep concern. She'd worked with recovered children before, kids found after weeks, sometimes months of captivity. But 5 years was unprecedented in her 23-year career. Amy sat in the living room, a sketch pad in her lap. She'd barely put it down since she'd returned. "Hello, Amy," Dr. Jacobs said, settling into the armchair across from her. "My name is Amanda. I help kids who've been through scary things." Amy looked up, studying her with those old eyes that had seen too much for 12 years on Earth. "Are you going to make me remember?" Amy asked quietly. The question caught Sarah off guard, but Dr. Jacobs simply shook her head. "No," she said honestly, I'm not going to make you do anything. Your mind locked those memories away for a reason, to protect you. We're only going to look at them if and when you're ready. Amy relaxed slightly. I keep seeing things, like pictures in my head, but they don't make sense. Can you tell me about them? Amy hesitated, then nodded. Sometimes I see a garden with flowers, roses, I think, red ones, and there's a fence, but it's really high, too high to climb. Dr. Jacobs made a note. What else? A kitchen, the smell of bacon cooking, a radio always playing in the background, a living room with a fireplace, a rocking chair that creaked, a basement, cold and damp. She didn't like going down there. And always the locked door, the pills that made everything fuzzy, the voice telling her to sleep. He called me something, Amy said suddenly, her eyes distant. Not Amy, a different name. Dr. Jacobs leaned forward. Do you remember what name? Amy's brow furrowed. Sarah, she whispered. Then her eyes went wide, and she looked at her mother. He called me Sarah, like you. The color drained from Sarah Cooper's face.
Detective Torres was in her office, comparing Amy's drawings to missing person reports from the past decade when her phone rang. Torres? She answered. Detective, it's Amanda Jacobs. I'm at the Cooper residence. You need to hear this. 20 minutes later, Torres sat in the Cooper living room, trying to process what Dr. Jacobs had just told her. He called her Sarah, Torres repeated. The same name as her mother. It's not uncommon for abductors to project, to rename their victims after someone significant to them. A lost daughter, a dead wife, someone they're trying to replace. Torres pulled out her laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. I need to cross-reference this with the database, she muttered. Look for any unsolved cases involving victims named Sarah. While Torres worked, Amy continued to draw. Another picture was taking shape on the page. This one showed a hallway, long and narrow. At the end was a door with a window. Through the window, Amy had drawn trees, many trees. Forest, Amy said quietly. We were near a forest. Torres looked up from her computer. Are you sure? Amy nodded. I could hear them at night. The trees, the wind moving through the branches, and animals. Owls, I think. Matthews, who had joined them, pulled up a map of Cedar Valley and the surrounding area. There are 3 major wooded areas within 50 miles, Blackwood Forest to the north, the Pine Ridge area to the east, and Whispering Hollow to the south. The tree in her earlier drawing, Torres said, the one with the curved trunk. If we can identify the species, we can narrow down the location. She forwarded the photo to the County Forest Service. Within the hour, they had a response. White oak, Torres read aloud, specifically a variety common to the Pine Ridge area. They're known for developing curved trunks due to the rocky soil. Matthews was already pulling up property records. Pine Ridge has about 200 private residences, plus seasonal cabins. This could take days to search. Then we start now, Torres said. There were others, Amy whispered. Everyone turned to look at her. What? Sarah breathed. Amy's hands trembled as she gripped her crayon. In the basement. I wasn't supposed to go down there, but once the door was unlocked, and I saw... She began to draw frantically. A basement, shelves along the walls, and on those shelves, items carefully arranged. A pink backpack, a yellow hair ribbon, a single red sneaker. Trophies, Torres said, her voice hard. He kept trophies. Amy nodded, tears streaming down her face. They were so many. Before me. Amy Cooper wasn't the first. She might have been the only one who survived.
Torres immediately called for a full task force meeting. By evening, the Cedar Valley Police Department's conference room was packed. On the board, Torres had pinned photos of Amy's drawings alongside missing person reports from the last 20 years. We're looking for a serial abductor, Torres announced. possibly a serial killer, someone who's been operating in this region for at least 2 decades. She pointed to the drawing of the basement shelves. Amy identified items in a basement, items that didn't belong to her. We need to cross-reference with cold cases, look for missing children, particularly girls. Matthews pulled up a file on the screen. I've already found 3 possibilities from the last 15 years. Melissa Hartman, age 9, disappeared in 2015 from a school playground in Brookfield. Jessica Torres, no relation to the detective, age 7, vanished from a park in Cedar Valley in 2018, and Emma Pearson, age 8, went missing from a grocery store parking lot in 2021. Torres studied the photos. 3 little girls, 3 families destroyed. What did they have in common? Matthews hesitated. Brown hair, green eyes, similar builds. They could almost be sisters. They look like Amy, Sarah said from the doorway. No one had noticed her enter. They all look like Amy. Torres met her eyes. He has a type. He's searching for something specific. Or someone, Dr. Jacobs added quietly. That night, unable to sleep, Torres reviewed every case file, every witness statement, every dead-end lead from the original investigation. And then she saw it. Something she'd missed 5 years ago. In the background of the carnival security footage from the night Amy disappeared, there was a figure, standing near the balloon stand, watching. The footage was grainy, but Torres enhanced it as much as she could. It was a man, average height, average build, wearing a baseball cap pulled low. But on his left hand, just barely visible, was a ring, a square stone catching the carnival lights. Torres's phone buzzed, a text from the Forest Service. Found 6 properties in Pine Ridge with white oak trees matching the description, sending addresses now. Torres grabbed her jacket. They were close, she could feel it. But when she got to her car, she found something. Tucked under her windshield wiper was a single white envelope. Inside was a note written in careful, old-fashioned script. You're looking in the wrong places, detective. Amy was never in Pine Ridge, but I enjoy watching you search. It reminds me why I'm so much smarter than all of you. Tell Sarah hello for me. Torres looked around the empty parking lot, her hand instinctively moving to her weapon. He was watching them, right now, at this very moment. The predator they were hunting wasn't running, he was playing with them. And somehow he knew exactly what they were doing. How? Torres immediately called for a full task force meeting. By evening, the Cedar Valley Police Department's conference room was packed. On the board, Torres had pinned photos of Amy's drawings alongside missing person reports from the last 20 years. We're looking for a serial abductor, Torres announced, possibly a serial killer. Someone who's been operating in this region for at least 2 decades. She pointed to the drawing of the basement shelves. Amy identified items in a basement, items that didn't belong to her. We need to cross-reference with cold cases, look for missing children, particularly girls. Matthews pulled up a file on the screen. I've already found 3 possibilities from the last 15 years. Melissa Hartman, age 9, disappeared in 2015 from a school playground in Brookfield. Jessica Torres, no relation to the detective, age 7, vanished from a park in Cedar Valley in 2018, and Emma Pearson, age 8, went missing from a grocery store parking lot in 2021. Torres studied the photos. 3 little girls, 3 families destroyed. What did they have in common? Matthews hesitated. Brown hair, green eyes, similar builds. They could almost be sisters. They look like Amy, Sarah said from the doorway. No one had noticed her enter. They all look like Amy. Torres met her eyes. He has a type. He's searching for something specific. Or someone, Dr. Jacobs added quietly. That night, unable to sleep, Torres reviewed every case file, every witness statement, every dead-end lead from the original investigation. And then she saw it, something she'd missed 5 years ago. In the background of the carnival security footage from the night Amy disappeared, there was a figure, standing near the balloon stand, watching. The footage was grainy, but Torres enhanced it as much as she could. It was a man, average height, average build, wearing a baseball cap pulled low. But on his left hand, just barely visible, was a ring, a square stone catching the carnival lights. Torres's phone buzzed, a text from the Forest Service. Found 6 properties in Pine Ridge with white oak trees matching the description, sending addresses now. Torres grabbed her jacket. They were close, she could feel it. But when she got to her car, she found something. Tucked under her windshield wiper was a single white envelope. Inside was a note written in careful, old-fashioned script. "You're looking in the wrong places, detective. Amy was never in Pine Ridge, but I enjoy watching you search. It reminds me why I'm so much smarter than all of you. Tell Sarah hello for me." Torres looked around the empty parking lot, her hand instinctively moving to her weapon. He was watching them, right now, at this very moment. The predator they were hunting wasn't running, he was playing with them, and somehow he knew exactly what they were doing. How?
By Saturday morning, the investigation had taken over the Cooper household. Detectives came and went. Phones rang constantly. The media had caught wind of Amy's return, and news vans camped outside, their cameras pointed at the windows like accusatory eyes. Sarah had stopped sleeping. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her daughter in that windowless room, counting tiles, waiting for 5 years to end. Amy was in the kitchen with Dr. Jacobs, working through another art therapy session, when she suddenly stopped mid-sketch. "Mom!" she called out, her voice urgent. "Mom, come here!" Sarah rushed in to find Amy staring at the television in the living room. A morning news show was playing, featuring a segment on child safety. The guest expert was a woman with short blonde hair and glasses. The same woman from Amy's drawing. "That's her," Amy whispered, pointing at the screen. "That's the woman I keep seeing." Sarah's heart pounded as she grabbed the remote, turning up the volume. "And that's why community awareness is so critical," the woman was saying. "Most abductions happen within a mile of the child's home, by someone they know or have seen before." The chyron at the bottom of the screen read, "Dr. Christine Mercer, Child Safety Advocate." Detective Torres arrived within 15 minutes of Sarah's frantic call. "You're sure this is the woman from your drawings?" Amy asked. Amy nodded emphatically. "I've seen her, lots of times, but I don't know where." Torres was already on her phone, searching for information on Dr. Christine Mercer. "She's legitimate," Torres said, reading from the screen. "PhD from Stanford. She's been doing advocacy work for missing children for the past 12 years. Lectures, fundraisers. She even consulted on—" Torres stopped. "She consulted on Amy's case 5 years ago." The room went silent. "She was here," Sarah said slowly, the memory coming back. "After Amy disappeared, she came to the house. She talked about hope, about keeping Amy's story alive. She seemed so kind." "Did she come back after that?" Torres asked. Sarah shook her head. "No, we heard she moved to Oregon for a job opportunity. I haven't thought about her in years." Torres was already pulling up Dr. Mercer's current location. According to her website, she's back in the area. She's giving a lecture on child trauma tonight at Cedar Valley University. Amy grabbed Torres's arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "She knows something," Amy said. "I can feel it. Whenever I draw her, I feel scared." Dr. Jacobs spoke up. "Amy, is it possible you saw Dr. Mercer during the time you were held, maybe on a television or in a photograph?" Amy closed her eyes, trying to remember. "Maybe. There was a TV in the room sometimes. He would let me watch approved shows, educational stuff. Maybe I saw her on TV?" But Torres was thinking about something else. The note left on her windshield, the specific mention of Sarah's name. Someone had detailed knowledge of the investigation, someone who knew what they were looking for before they even looked. A consultant would have that kind of access. "I'm going to that lecture tonight," Torres said. "Matthews, I need you to pull everything we have on Christine Mercer, where she's lived, where she's worked, financial records. I want to know who this woman really is." But before Matthews could respond, Amy gasped. She was staring at her latest drawing, her hand shaking. She'd drawn Dr. Mercer's face again, but this time she'd added something new. Behind Dr. Mercer, Amy had drawn a man, tall, broad shoulders, and on his left hand she'd carefully drawn the ring. "They were together," Amy whispered. "She wasn't alone. There was someone with her." That afternoon, Matthews returned with Dr. Mercer's background check. "It's almost too clean," he said, spreading the documents across Torres's desk. "Christine Mercer, born in Seattle in 1978, excellent student, Stanford PhD, published extensively, no criminal record, no red flags." "What about relationships?" Torres asked. "Married? Divorced?" Matthews flipped to another page. "Never married, no children, lives alone in a house she purchased 6 months ago in Riverside Heights." Torres knew the area. Upscale, private, lots of trees. "Wait," Matthews said, looking at another document. "There's a property transfer here from 2018. She sold a house in Pine Ridge." "Pine Ridge? The same Pine Ridge with the white oak trees?" Matthews nodded. "The property was remote, 3 acres, sold it when she supposedly moved to Oregon. Get me the address of that property, now."
While Matthews worked, Torres researched Dr. Mercer's published work. Most of it was standard academic material about child psychology, trauma recovery, and family dynamics. But one paper, published in 2016, caught Torres's attention. It was titled "Replacement Theory: When Abductors Create Surrogate Children to Fill Psychological Voids." The abstract was chilling. In cases of child abduction motivated by psychological need rather than criminal intent, the abductor often seeks to replace a lost child of their own. The victim is renamed, redressed, and psychologically molded to fit the image of the child the abductor has lost. Torres's phone rang. It was Matthews. "I've got the address of the Pine Ridge property," he said. "And detective, there's a white oak tree on the property. I can see it on Google Earth, curved trunk and everything." Torres was already grabbing her jacket. "Get a warrant. I want to search that property today." But Matthews's next words stopped her. "There's a problem. Mercer sold the property to a couple named Richard and Ellen Walsh. They've been living there for 4 years. They have 2 kids. They've completely renovated the place." Torres swore under her breath. Any evidence would be long gone. "Search it anyway. Maybe they found something when they renovated. A hidden room, a locked basement, something." At 4 p.m., Torres and a forensics team arrived at the property in Pine Ridge. Richard Walsh met them at the door, confusion evident on his face. "Is there a problem, detective?" Torres showed him the warrant. "We have reason to believe the previous owner of this property may have been involved in a crime. We need to search the premises." Ellen Walsh appeared, holding their young daughter. "What kind of crime?" Torres didn't want to scare them, but they needed to know. "Child abduction." Ellen's face turned sour. She instinctively pulled her daughter closer. For the next 3 hours, the forensics team searched every inch of the property, the house, the garage, the yard. They found nothing. The Walsh family had gutted the interior when they bought it, replacing floors, walls, and fixtures. If there had been a locked room, it was gone now. Torres stood in what was now a cheerful yellow kitchen, trying to imagine what it had looked like before. Had Amy been here? Had she been held in this very house? "Detective," one of the forensic techs called from the backyard. "You need to see this." Torres followed him to the far edge of the property where the white oak tree stood, its trunk curved exactly as Amy had drawn it. Beneath the tree, partially hidden by overgrown grass, was a small concrete pad, a foundation for something that was no longer there. "What is this?" Torres asked. Richard Walsh came over, puzzled. "I don't know. It was here when we bought the place. We assumed it was an old shed foundation." The forensic tech was already scraping at the concrete with a tool. "There's something here. Looks like scratches, deliberate ones." Torres knelt down to closely inspect. Carved into the concrete, barely visible after years of weathering, were words. "Help me. I'm Sarah." But it wasn't Amy's handwriting. The carving was old, weathered, from years before Amy had been taken. There had been another girl, another Sarah, and whoever had carved this message had known she wasn't going to be found. Torres immediately called in a full excavation team. If there was a body buried here, they needed to find it. But as the sun set and the digging began, Torres received another call. It was from Sarah Cooper, and she was screaming, "She's gone! Amy's gone! We only left her alone for 5 minutes, and she's gone!" Torres shockingly replied, "What? How?" "We were in the kitchen. She said she needed to use the bathroom. When we checked on her, the window was open. Detective, someone took her again. He came back for her." Torres was already running for her car. But even as she drove, a terrible thought occurred to her. What if Amy hadn't been taken? What if she had remembered something so terrifying that she'd run?
The Cooper house was chaos when Torres arrived. Squad cars filled the driveway. Officers searched the yard with flashlights. Sarah Cooper sat on the front steps, sobbing into her hands, while David paced frantically, his phone pressed to his ear, calling anyone and everyone who might have seen Amy. "Tell me exactly what happened," Torres said to Dr. Jacobs, who'd been with the family when Amy disappeared. Dr. Jacobs' face was pale. "We were in the kitchen. Amy seemed agitated. She kept looking out the windows. I asked if she was okay, and she said she needed to use the bathroom. Sarah told her to use the one upstairs. And then? She was gone for about 7 minutes. Sarah went to check on her. The bathroom door was open. The window was wide open. Amy was gone." Torres examined the bathroom window. It was on the 2nd floor, about 15 feet off the ground. Below was a flower bed, the soil disturbed. "She jumped," Torres said, "or climbed down somehow." "But why?" Sarah cried from the doorway. "Why would she run? She was safe here. She was home." Torres thought about the drawing Amy had made that morning, Dr. Mercer and the man with the ring. Together, Amy had remembered something that scared her enough to run. Or someone had contacted her, told her to run. Check her room, computer, phone, any device she could have used.
Matthews emerged from Amy's bedroom holding a tablet. This was under her pillow. Browser history shows she was on social media. She created an account 3 days ago. Torres's jaw clenched. 3 days since she'd been back. What was she looking at? Matthews pulled up the screen. Amy's account had 1 follower, an account with no profile picture, no posts, no identifying information, just a username, father_knows_best. And in Amy's direct messages was a single conversation. Father knows best. Sarah, you need to come back. You're not safe there. Amy, my name is Amy. Leave me alone. Father knows best. They're going to hurt you. They're lying to you. I'm the only one who's ever protected you. Amy, I don't believe you. Father knows best. Look outside your window right now. The timestamp on that last message was 4:47 p.m., 7 minutes before Amy had gone to the bathroom. Torres felt sick. He'd been outside the house, watching, signaling to her somehow. Pull security footage from every camera in the neighborhood, Torres ordered. Traffic cams, doorbell cameras, everything. I want to know what Amy saw that made her run. While the team worked,
Torres sat down with Sarah and David. "I need you to think. Has anyone new come into your life recently? A repair person? A delivery driver? Anyone who might have had access to the house?" Sarah shook her head, but David suddenly froze. "The grief counselor," he said quietly. "What?" "After Amy was taken, we went to a grief support group. The counselor was recommended to us by Dr. Mercer. He worked with us for about 6 months, then we stopped going." "What was his name?" Torres asked. David thought hard. Leonard Price." "Leonard Price? Amy's art teacher?" Sarah's eyes widened. "No, that's a different Leonard Price. The grief counselor's name was Leonard Price, but he wasn't a teacher. He was a licensed therapist."
Torres was already searching the name. 2 Leonard Prices in Cedar Valley. One was indeed Amy's current art teacher at school, age 62, taught for 30 years. The other was listed as a grief counselor, age 46. But when Torres pulled his license information, she found something strange. Leonard Price, the grief counselor, had stopped practicing in 2020. His license had been suspended pending an investigation into inappropriate relationships with clients. The investigation had been dropped when the complainants withdrew their statements. "Do you have a photo of him?" Torres asked. David pulled out his phone, scrolling through old pictures. "Here, from the support group." The photo showed a group of people standing in a church basement. In the back row was a man, average height, average build, short brown hair. And on his left hand, just barely visible, was a ring with a square stone. Leonard Price, the grief counselor, had been working with the families of missing children. He'd had access to their homes, their trust, their most vulnerable moments. Dr. Christine Mercer had recommended him. They were working together. "I need an address for Leonard Price," Torres barked into her radio. "Now." While she waited, Torres studied the photo more carefully. In the corner of the image, she could see part of a wall with framed photos. One of those photos showed a young woman, blonde hair, wearing a graduation cap and gown. Torres zoomed in as much as she could. The woman looked familiar. And then she saw the name on the diploma frame, Sarah Price. Sarah Price, not Sarah Cooper. Leonard Price had a daughter named Sarah. The first carving under the tree had said, "I'm Sarah." Another girl, held before Amy, had identified herself as Sarah. Leonard Price's daughter. "Get me everything on Sarah Price," Torres said. "I want to know what happened to her." The answer came back within minutes. Sarah Price had died in a car accident in 2014. She was 17 years old. 2 years later, the first girl disappeared.
And now Torres understood. Leonard Price was trying to replace his dead daughter over and over again. Each girl became Sarah. Each girl was forced to fill the void his daughter had left. And Dr. Christine Mercer had been helping him. Why? What was her connection? Torres pulled up Dr. Mercer's background again, looking for any link to Leonard Price. And there it was, in her educational history. Christine Mercer had done her PhD dissertation research at a facility where Leonard Price had worked as a counselor from 2010 to 2014. They'd known each other for at least 15 years. But the relationship went deeper than that. Torres found a social media post from 2012. Christine Mercer at a graduation party for Sarah Price. In the photo, Christine had her arm around the young blonde woman, both smiling at the camera. She was Sarah Price's godmother, Torres breathed. When Sarah Price died, Leonard Price had broken, and Christine Mercer, grieving her godchild, had broken too. They'd found each other in their grief, and together they'd created a nightmare. Price abducted the girls. Mercer helped them select them, using her access to missing children cases to find the perfect victims. Girls who looked like Sarah. Girls who could be renamed Sarah. And when the girls got too old or didn't fit anymore, Price would let them go and start over. Amy wasn't the first girl he'd released. She was just the first one they'd found. The others were still out there, or buried under trees in Pine Ridge. Torres's radio crackled. "We've got an address for Leonard Price, 2847 Willow Road. But detective, there's a problem." "What problem?" "The house is dark, looks abandoned, and there's a car registered to Christine Mercer parked in the driveway." Torres was already moving. "Get SWAT, get everyone, we're going in now." But as she reached her car, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo. Amy sitting in a chair in a dimly lit room. She looked terrified. Below the photo, a message. "You were supposed to protect her, detective, but you failed. Again. If you want to see Sarah alive, come alone. 2847 Willow Road. 30 minutes, no police, or I'll make sure she disappears forever this time." Torres stared at the message, her blood boiling. She should call it in, should follow protocol, should wait for backup. But 30 minutes wasn't enough time, and if Price saw police, he'd kill Amy. Torres knew what she had to do. She texted back, "I'm coming." Then she turned off her radio and drove into the darkness alone.
The house at 2847 Willow Road sat at the end of a long gravel driveway, hidden behind a wall of overgrown pine trees. Torres killed her headlights as she approached, her hand resting on her weapon. Dr. Mercer's silver sedan was parked near the front entrance, just as dispatch had said. But there was another vehicle behind it, a dark van with tinted windows. Torres knew she was walking into a trap, but Amy was inside, and Torres wasn't leaving without her. She'd sent one quick text before turning off her phone, to Matthews, just 2 words, Willow Road. He'd understand, he'd come with backup, but it would take time. Time Torres didn't have. She approached the front door, which hung slightly ajar. Through the gap, she could see a dimly lit hallway. "I'm here," Torres called out. "I came alone like you asked. Let Amy go." For a moment, there was only silence. Then a voice, soft and measured, came from inside. "Come in, detective. Slowly. Hands where I can see them." Torres pushed the door open and stepped inside. The house smelled of dust and decay. The furniture was old, covered in sheets. Family photos lined the walls, but they were all turned backward, their faces hidden. In the living room, Amy sat in a wooden chair, her hands zip-tied in front of her. Her face was streaked with tears, but she was alive. Behind her stood Leonard Price. He was exactly as he'd appeared in the photo. Average, forgettable, the kind of man you'd pass on the street without a second glance. Except for his eyes. His eyes were hollow, emptied of everything human. In his right hand, he held a syringe. "That's close enough," Price said, as Torres entered the room. Torres raised her hands, showing she wasn't reaching for her weapon. "It's over, Leonard. The police know about Sarah. They know what you've been doing." Price smiled, but it was the saddest smile Torres had ever seen. "Sarah," he said, looking at Amy. "They always try to call you something else, but you're Sarah. You've always been Sarah." "My name is Amy," the girl said, her voice shaking but defiant. Price replied quickly, No, that's what they told you, what they programmed into you, but I know who you really are." Torres took a small step forward. "Where's Dr. Mercer?" "Christine is preparing the next phase," Price said calmly. "She's always been the smart one, the planner. I just do what needs to be done." "Which is what? Abducting children? Drugging them? Forcing them to replace your dead daughter?" Price flinched at the words. "You don't understand. Sarah wasn't supposed to die. She was 17. She had her whole life ahead of her. It was a drunk driver, some college kid who walked away without a scratch while my little girl died on impact." "I'm sorry for your loss," Torres said, and she meant it. "But this isn't the way to bring her back."
I'm not trying to bring her back, Price's voice cracked. I know she's dead. I know I can't change that, but I can remember her. I can have her here, just for a little while. Is that so wrong? Yes, Torres said firmly, because you're hurting innocent children to do it.
Price looked at Amy, his expression confused, as if he genuinely couldn't understand what Torres meant. I didn't hurt her, he said. I took care of her, fed her, kept her safe. I gave her books, let her watch educational programs. I never laid a hand on her. You imprisoned her, Torres said. You stole 5 years of her life. I gave her purpose, Price shouted. I gave her love. Do you know what it's like to lose the only thing that matters? To have your whole world end in one stupid, senseless moment? Torres thought of all the families she'd worked with over the years, the parents of missing children, the Coopers who'd lost 5 years with their daughter. Yes, she said quietly, I do. Every parent you've stolen a child from knows exactly what that's like, because you did to them what that drunk driver did to you. The words hit Price like a physical blow. He staggered back, the syringe wavering in his hand. That's different, he whispered. I always let them go, eventually. Where are the others? Torres asked. The girls before Amy. I don't know. I let them go, just like I let Sarah go. I dropped them somewhere safe and drove away. Except for the first one, the one who carved I'm Sarah into the concrete. What happened to her? Price closed his eyes. That was a mistake. I wasn't ready. I didn't know what I was doing yet. She tried to escape, and... He didn't finish, but he didn't need to. Torres understood. The first girl had died, and Price had buried her under the white oak tree. How many girls have there been? Price shook his head. I don't remember. 4? 5? Christine kept track. She said each one taught us something, made us better at this. Torres felt rage building in her chest. Where is Christine now? Before Price could answer, a voice came from the hallway. I'm right here, detective.
Dr. Christine Mercer stepped into the room, and Torres saw immediately that she was holding a gun. I'm disappointed, Mercer said calmly. I really hoped you'd follow instructions and come alone, but I saw you text Matthews. That wasn't smart. If Mercer had seen the text, that meant she'd been watching. How? Mercer smiled as if reading her thoughts. You're wondering how I knew. It's simple. I've been tracking your phone since you left the police station. Technology is wonderful, isn't it? It's over, Christine, Torres said. Even if you kill me, Matthews knows I'm here. Backup is coming. I know, which is why we need to accelerate our timeline. She looked at Price. Leonard, it's time. Price stared at the syringe in his hand, then at Amy. But she's not ready. We haven't finished the conditioning. She'll never be ready, sweetheart. She's too old now. She remembers too much. We need to let this Sarah go and start fresh. Torres understood with horror what Mercer meant. You're going to kill her? No, we're going to release her, back to her family, just like we always planned. Then why the gun? Torres asked. Mercer's expression hardened. Because you're going to try to stop us, and I can't let that happen. Leonard and I have worked too hard, sacrificed too much. We deserve to have Sarah, even if it's just for a little while. Torres looked at Amy, who was staring at Mercer with recognition dawning in her eyes. I remember you, Amy whispered. You came to the room. You brought me clothes. You told me stories about the real Sarah, about how she loved art and music, and you told me I could be just like her if I tried hard enough. Mercer's face softened.
And you did try, sweetheart. You were so good, the best Sarah we've had. There's something wrong with you, both of you. You need help. We needed Sarah, Mercer said, and when we lost her, we found a way to keep her alive. Is that so different from what other grieving people do? Some people build memorials. We built something better. You built a prison, Torres said.
Mercer raised the gun, pointing it at Torres. I'm sorry, Detective, but you're not leaving here. Leonard, give her the shot. We need to go. Price approached Amy with the syringe, his hands shaking. I'm sorry, Sarah, he whispered. I tried to keep you longer, but it's time. As the needle moved toward Amy's arm, Torres made her decision. She lunged forward, knocking into Price. The syringe flew from his hand, shattering against the wall. Mercer fired. The bullet caught Torres in the shoulder, spinning her around. She hit the floor hard, pain exploding through her body. But she'd bought Amy a few seconds. "Run!" Torres screamed. "Amy, run!" Amy didn't hesitate. She jumped from the chair, her bound hands making her clumsy, and bolted for the door. Price tried to grab her, but Torres, bleeding and desperate, tackled him from the floor. Mercer fired again, but Amy was already out the door, disappearing into the darkness. "Get her!" Mercer screamed at Price. "Don't let her get away!" Price scrambled to his feet and ran after Amy, leaving Torres bleeding on the floor, with Mercer standing over her. "You've ruined everything," Mercer said. 5 years of planning. Gone!" Torres clutched her shoulder, blood seeping between her fingers. "It was already ruined the moment you decided a child was replaceable." Mercer pointed the gun at Torres's head. "Goodbye, Detective." But before she could pull the trigger, the sound of sirens filled the air. Matthews hadn't waited 30 minutes. He'd come immediately. Mercer's face twisted with rage. She turned and ran deeper into the house, leaving Torres bleeding but alive. Outside, Amy stumbled through the dark forest, her bound hands making it impossible to keep her balance. She could hear Price behind her, crashing through the undergrowth. "Sarah," he called, "come back. It's not safe out there." But Amy kept running, because she'd remembered something crucial. The basement she'd drawn, the trophies, the items from the other girls. One of those items had been a necklace, a small silver heart with an engraving. And Amy had recognized it because she'd seen the same necklace in a missing persons poster 5 years ago. A poster for a girl named Jessica Torres, the detective's daughter. Amy burst through the tree line and straight into the arms of Officer Matthews, who'd been approaching the house with SWAT. "Amy!" Matthews caught her as she collapsed. You're safe now." "Detective Torres, she's been shot, and there's something you need to know about your daughter, about Jessica." Matthews's face went pale. "What about Jessica?" But before Amy could answer, gunfire erupted from inside the house. Matthews stared at Amy. "What did you say about Jessica?" Amy's eyes filled with tears. "In the basement, there were things from other girls. I saw a necklace, a silver heart. It said, 'To Jessica, love Mom,' on the back." Matthews had given his daughter that necklace for her 10th birthday, 3 years before she disappeared. Jessica Torres had vanished in 2018, 7 years old, taken from a park while Matthews had been at work. Detective Maria Torres had searched for her niece like she'd searched for Amy, for months, years, until the case went cold and the file sat on her desk, always open, always waiting. Jessica was Maria Torres's brother's daughter, Matthews's own daughter, and she'd been one of Price's victims. "Where?" Matthews's voice was barely a whisper. "Where is the basement?" "Inside," said Amy. "But I don't know if she's still—" She didn't need to finish. Matthews understood. He handed Amy to one of the SWAT officers. "Get her to safety, now."
Then he ran toward the house, deaf to the shouts of his team, blind to everything except the possibility that his daughter might still be alive. Inside, Detective Torres had managed to drag herself behind a couch. Her shoulder burned with agony, and she was losing blood fast, but she was alive. She could hear Mercer moving through the house, searching for another way out. The sirens were getting closer, but Mercer was desperate, and desperate people did unpredictable things. Torres pulled out her phone with her good hand and called Matthews. "Ben," she gasped when he answered. "I'm inside. Mercer is armed. Price is... I don't know where Price is." "Maria?" Matthews's voice was strained. "Amy said something about Jessica, about a necklace in a basement. Jessica, Matthews's daughter, her niece. Maria? Is she alive?" Matthews cut her off. "Maria, is my daughter alive?" "I don't know," Torres admitted. "But Price said he let the girls go, all except the first one." "When was Jessica taken?" Matthews asked, though he already knew the answer. 2018. She was the second.
The words hung between them. If the first girl had died, but Price had let the others go, then Jessica might be alive. Somewhere. "Find the basement," Torres said. "I'm going after Mercer." She ended the call and forced herself to her feet. Every movement sent waves of pain through her shoulder, but she pushed through it. Mercer was in the kitchen, trying to force open a window that had been painted shut. She spun when she heard Torres, raising the gun. "You should be dead," Mercer hissed. Disappointed, Torres leaned against the doorframe, her own weapon trained on Mercer. "Drop the gun, Christine. It's over." "It's not over until I say it's over." Mercer's composure was cracking. The calm, collected psychologist was gone, replaced by someone unhinged. "You don't understand. Sarah was everything. She was brilliant and kind, and she was gonna change the world, and some drunk idiot took her away. So you helped Leonard steal other people's daughters to fill that void. How many, Christine? How many families did you destroy?" "We gave those girls purpose," Mercer screamed. "They were loved. They were cherished. They got to be Sarah." "They got to be prisoners," Torres corrected, "and you're going to prison for the rest of your life." Mercer's finger tightened on the trigger. "I don't think so." But before she could fire, a voice came from behind Torres. "FBI, drop your weapon." Agent Rebecca Shaw stepped into the kitchen, flanked by 2 other federal agents. Matthews had called in the FBI the moment Amy mentioned Jessica. Mercer looked at Torres, then at the agents, calculating her odds. Then she lowered the gun and started to cry. "We just wanted her back. We just wanted Sarah back."
While the FBI took Mercer into custody, Matthews found the basement door. It was hidden behind a bookshelf in the hallway, secured with 3 separate locks. He kicked it open and descended into darkness. The basement was exactly as Amy had drawn it. Shelves lined the walls, and on those shelves were items carefully arranged and labeled. Melissa Hartman, pink backpack, disappeared 2015. Jessica Torres, silver necklace, disappeared 2018. Emma Pearson, yellow hair ribbon, disappeared 2021. Amy Cooper, red sneaker, disappeared 2021. But there was one more shelf, one more name. Sarah Price, graduation photo, died 2014. This was a shrine, a twisted memorial to the dead and the stolen. Matthews picked up Jessica's necklace with shaking hands. He remembered the day he'd given it to her, the way her face had lit up, how she'd refused to take it off, even to sleep, and Price had kept it like a trophy. But Jessica wasn't here, which meant Price had told the truth. He'd let her go. Matthews ran back upstairs, bursting into the living room where the FBI was processing the scene. "Where's Price?" he demanded. "Where the hell is Leonard Price?"
One of the SWAT officers shook his head. He ran into the woods after the girl. We haven't found him yet. Matthews grabbed the radio. All units, we need to expand the search. Leonard Price is armed and dangerous, and someone called Child Services. We need to find every girl Price released, starting with Jessica Torres. Agent Shaw approached him. Matthews, if Price did release these girls, they could be anywhere. It's been years. I don't care, said Matthews. We find them. All of them.
Outside, in the forest, Price had stopped running. He sat beneath a tree, gasping for breath, his whole body shaking. Amy was gone. The police had her. Mercer was probably already in custody. It was over. He pulled out a small photo from his wallet. His daughter, his real Sarah, 17 years old, smiling at the camera on her last birthday. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the photo. "I tried to keep you alive. I tried so hard." He could hear the police dogs in the distance. They'd find him soon. Price reached into his pocket and pulled out a bottle of pills, the same pills he'd used to sedate the girls, to keep them calm, to keep them compliant. He poured the entire bottle into his hand. "I'm coming, Sarah. Daddy's coming." And he swallowed them all. The police found Leonard Price an hour later. He was still alive, but barely. An ambulance rushed him to Cedar Valley General, where doctors fought to save his life, not because he deserved to live, but because he was the only one who knew where he'd released the other girls. Detective Torres sat in a hospital bed 2 floors above Price, her shoulder bandaged, her arm in a sling. Matthews sat beside her, the silver necklace clutched in his hand. "We're going to find her," Torres said quietly. "We're going to find Jessica." Matthews nodded, but he couldn't speak. 7 years. His daughter had been missing for 7 years. What if Price had lied? What if he hadn't really let them go? What if Jessica was dead, and he'd spent 7 years hoping for nothing? "Then," Torres said, squeezing his hand with her good arm, "we're going to find her." 3 days later, Leonard Price woke up in the ICU, handcuffed to the bed, with 2 federal agents waiting to question him. He'd survived the suicide attempt, though he'd never fully recover. The drugs had damaged his organs irreparably. Agent Shaw sat beside his bed, her expression hard. "You're going to tell us where you released the girls," she said. "Every single one. Help us find these girls alive. You might get a deal." Price laughed. "A deal? I'm dying. What do I care about a deal?" "Then do it for them," Shaw said. "For the girls. They deserve to know who they really are. They deserve to go home." Price was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. "I always took them far away, to different states. I'd drug them one last time, drive through the night, and leave them somewhere safe. A hospital parking lot, a police station, somewhere they'd be found quickly." "Where?" Shaw pressed. "We need specific locations." Price closed his eyes, remembering. "Melissa Hartman. I left her at a fire station in Colorado, Denver, January 2017. Shaw was already on her phone, calling the Denver Police Department. "Jessica Torres. I left her at a hospital in Oregon, Portland, March 2020. Matthews, who was listening from outside the room, felt his knees buckle. Portland. Jessica was in Portland, or had been 2 years ago. "Emma Pearson. I left her at a church in Nevada, Las Vegas, October 2023. Price opened his eyes, looking at Shaw. "They were all alive when I left them, I swear. I made sure they were found. I gave them a chance to go back to their real lives." "And Sarah Price, the first girl? What happened to her?" Price's face crumbled. "Her name was Lily Chen.
She was 9 years old. I took her in 2016, but I didn't know what I was doing yet. I was so desperate to have Sarah back that I scared her. She tried to run and she fell, hit her head on the concrete foundation. I tried to save her, but he started to cry. I buried her under the oak tree. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Shaw stood up, disgusted. You're sorry? You destroyed that little girl's family. You destroyed all of their families. I know. Within hours, the FBI had mobilized teams in Denver, Portland, and Las Vegas. They were looking for 3 girls who'd been found years ago with no memory of who they were. Girls who'd been placed in foster care or adopted because no one could identify them. Girls who'd been living under new names, new identities, with no idea they'd been stolen.
In Portland, Matthews personally led the search for Jessica. The hospital records from March 2020 showed a girl, approximately 9 years old, had been found in the parking lot, unconscious, no identification, no memory. She'd been placed with child services and eventually adopted by a couple named Robert and Linda Chen. The same last name as the girl Price had buried under the oak tree. It felt like the universe's cruel joke. Matthews stood outside the Chen residence, his heart pounding. Behind him, Agent Shaw waited in the car, ready to intervene if needed. But Matthews had asked to do this alone. He rang the doorbell. A woman answered, late 40s, kind eyes. Can I help you? Matthews showed his badge. My name is Officer Ben Matthews. I'm looking for a girl who was found in March 2020, a girl with no memory. Linda Chen's expression shifted. Emma, you're here about Emma. Emma? They'd named her Emma. Can I speak with her? Matthews asked. Linda hesitated. She's been through a lot. She still doesn't remember anything from before we found her, if this is going to upset her. I think she's my daughter. Her name is Jessica Torres. She was taken 7 years ago. Linda's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. She let Matthews inside. The house was warm, comfortable. Photos lined the walls, a happy family. And sitting on the couch, doing homework, was a 14-year-old girl with brown hair and green eyes. Jessica. She looked up when Matthews entered, curious but not alarmed. Emma, Linda said gently, this man thinks he might know who you are from before. Jessica, Emma, stood up slowly. She studied Matthews' face, searching for recognition that wasn't there. I'm sorry, I don't remember you. Matthews pulled out his phone with shaking hands. He showed her a photo. Himself and Jessica, taken on their 7th birthday. Her wearing the silver necklace. This is you, 7 years ago. Your name was Jessica Torres, and I'm your daughter. Emma stared at the photo, at the little girl wearing her necklace. I had that necklace, she whispered. When they found me, it was the only thing I had. Matthews nodded, tears streaming down his face. I gave it to you for your 10th birthday. Emma looked at Linda, confused and scared. Mom? Linda wrapped her arm around Emma's shoulders. It's okay, sweetheart. We knew this day might come. Emma looked back at Matthews, at this stranger claiming to be her father. I don't remember, her voice broke. I'm sorry, I don't remember you at all. That's okay, Matthews said, though his heart was shattering. That's okay. You don't have to remember. You just have to know that I never stopped looking for you. I never stopped hoping. Emma started to cry. I want to remember. I want to know who I was. Matthews took a step forward. Then I'll help you. We'll figure it out together. And for the first time in 7 years, Matthews held his daughter. She didn't remember him, didn't know him, but she was alive. And that was enough.